All right, I think at this point in time, we've got a pretty good handle on classical and operant conditioning. I don't know if you remembered, but at the beginning of this unit, I threatened that we're going to teach 4 types of learning. So we did classical, we did operant, skip a line. Let's jump on to the 3rd type we're going to hit. And we're going to call it observational, or we're going to call it social learning. I'm going to use these terms kind of interchangeably. Social learning is learning that occurs in a social situation. Social learning is learning that occurs in a social situation. Now, when are you not in a social situation? I'm not talking about that poor neglected kid in the cafeteria that's eating cold soup out of a thermos wedged between 2 vending machines that everyone ignores. All right, some of you are like, that's me. And maybe that is you. You got nothing but your Yu-Gi-Oh cards spread out and waiting for someone to sit down and play with you. That child is not learning socially. Why are you laughing? Some people are laughing at that. One kid that actually got it. All right. What up?
Does this kid play Yu-Gi-Oh?
So do I.
Oh, you two better duel.
Dude, why would I do that? Because I like my Yu-Gi-Oh pets. So I take this beloved thing that comes to me for trust, and I fight it against another creature for my own enjoyment.
That's Pokemon.
Well done. All right. So here's what the heck we're talking about. Social learning. When do you not learn? So in this class, some of you have learned that if you say something, I'm going to smack you down. They don't even try to be funny because, look at you. The only way you're going to be funny is in a mirror, all right? And so some of you don't raise your hands. Some of you like that interaction. And what's that going to mean? You're going to keep doing it over and over. You don't believe me? Go ahead, Hunter.
Are those Autobots or Decepticons, actually?
They're Decepticons.
What are you talking about?
Thank you for stopping the class momentum. Okay, moving on here, boys and girls.
I have 2 left. That was one.
I didn't say you'd have to answer them. I just let you ask me. Yes. And you're just now realizing this. All right, then. All right. You think I'm bad? You should see the puppies in the pound when I go. They're like, oh, here he comes again. All right, because I just walk by like, not today, not today, not today. All right, just tease the dogs. All right, then. So here's what we're looking at. Social learning is kind of the answer to the simplicity of Skinner. Skinner said the only way we learn is reward and punishment. And you know what, that worked, but now we're like, wait a minute, how do people learn language? I mean, on your first couple words out, you say mama, you say dada, and you were rewarded with more hugs, more attention, more cuddling. But when you learn your 15,000th word, you don't even remember it. When did you learn it? Were you rewarded? If you've learned slang, and you say the word sice in it, or that's so jank, or slur, or whatever you freaking learned that's cool nowadays, did someone reward you? Oh my gosh, you used it correctly. Observational learning is the same thing as social learning. That's what we're going to say for now. If you were to take a class in this, they would pick that apart and they would say that though they overlap, there are differences between them. But I wonder if anyone here has ever had an older brother or sister who got in trouble with your parents for doing something stupid. And then, just wait for it, a year or 2 later, you did the exact same thing and got in trouble for doing the same thing your older brother or sister did. Yeah. Why didn't you learn? What if I said wisdom is learning from other people's mistakes? Can teenagers do that, or do you have to experience it for yourself? If you have to experience it for yourself, that's going to be Skinnerian conditioning. If you can watch and learn, that's going to be observational learning. Now, children watch and learn. Skinner said no way. Skinner said I cannot observe, I cannot measure what they're learning, what they're watching. But another gentleman named Albert Bandura. Bandura said, you know what, kids do learn. And here's what he did. He took a bunch of kids and he put them in kind of a lab or observation room. Imagine here's a big room right here. And he divided it. On one hand, he had kind of the observation room. And you had kids watching through a one-way mirror. And over here you had a whole bunch of toys, all kinds of toys. Dolls and trucks and a kitchen set and a big inflatable doll and little cowboy guns and you name it. He had a tetherball, he had, name it, it was in there. And then he had what's called a model. And the model would be an adult Confederate in the research. And the little kids would watch the adult play. And if the adult sat down and had a tea party, the kids were more likely to have a tea party. It didn't guarantee their behavior. If the adults were playing with trucks, the kids would go in and play with trucks. So the kids watched how the model was playing with the toys. And then when given the chance, they were let in through the door and they could go play. And basically what they saw the model do was what they did. If they saw the model be violent, the kids would be violent. More importantly, the kids would take the model's violent behavior and go one step more. They would apply their own creativity on how to be more violent. This is really topical because it's in the news with something called the knockout game. All right, which is pretty evil. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you basically get a bunch of kids, usually young men, shocker, not known for their wisdom. All right, tell me young men are known for their wisdom. No, they're not. So you get a bunch of kids walking around, and they wait for someone to be passing by, Starbucks, briefcase, dude's just walking home, going whatever, and when the person's not looking, they just cold cock them, boom, steal them right in the back of the head as hard as they can, and they want to see if they can knock someone out on one punch. You know, basically, if you hit anyone unsuspecting, I don't care how big or bad you are, you get hit and you rattle the skull enough, the brain's going to slosh around in there, lights out, and so the person's unconscious before they fall, they can't protect themselves, head hit the concrete, a couple people have died from it. And the game is, can you knock someone out for no reason with one punch? Now, where did this come from? I believe it came from a video game called Grand Theft Auto. It did, right? Yeah. So, what's that? Yeah, it's all over the news now. So, when we're talking about observational learning, the man's name is Albert Bandura. And in the room in which the children saw the model playing with toys, he had what's called a Bobo doll. And a Bobo doll is about a 3-foot tall inflatable toy, a little bit of weight on the bottom. I bet you've seen them nowadays. It's like basically a punching bag. And if the children saw the adult model go hit and punch Bobo, they'd go hit and punch Bobo. But again, the most important thing is they would take that and one step further. If they saw the adult hit Bobo, well, then they'd go kick Bobo. If they saw the adult pick up a gun, they would not only use the gun and fake shoot Bobo, they'd take the gun and pistol whip Bobo in the face. All right, so why don't you rickety write down the word modeling. When behavior is demonstrated, it is copied. Now, this brings us to self-efficacy, because if you've seen someone model behavior, maybe you saw someone engage in a marathon, a triathlon, maybe you saw someone really work hard, get good grades, and you want to imitate the model. The model is the person that does the behavior. You got to wonder, can you do it? So the question you have to ask yourself are, what are your parents modeling? What are your teachers modeling? What are your friends modeling? Because if this is true, and I think you know it is, we do imitate behavior we've seen. So look around at your friends. Do you have the highest GPA of all your group of friends? If so, fire them. Because of what's called regression to the mean, they're dragging you back. You should worm your way into a group of kids that are slightly smarter, have slightly better at grade point average than you, because you will be brought up. If you hang out with those people, you will imitate their behavior. Do you agree? Let's look at a little bit of Bobo.
Children watched a filmed adult perform novel aggressive acts toward a inflated doll, and the physical aggression was accompanied by novel hostile remarks. We later measured how much of this modeled aggression the children had learned just by watching. Now, the measurement of learning of aggression uses simulated targets rather than live ones. The model pummeled the doll with a mallet, flung it in the air, kicked it repeatedly, threw it down and beat it. Exposure to aggressive modeling increased attraction to guns, even though it was never modeled. Guns had less appeal to children who had no exposure to the aggressive modeling. The children also picked up the novel hostile language. The room contained varied play materials, and children could choose to play aggressively or non-aggressively. The children devised new ways of hitting the doll. Now, the object of interest was the novel aggressive acts, not punching the doll. The children in the control group, who had no exposure to the aggressive modeling, never exhibited the novel forms of aggression. And here's a creative embellishment. A doll becomes a weapon of assault.
Okay, so what's the takeaway? Quiet or I will mock you. All right, that's my threat. All right, so what's the takeaway with Bandura's experience? It's been replicated over and over and over. What children see, they do. And if you demonstrate a behavior, children will very often not only imitate it, but go a step behind. So what are your parents imitating for you? What are your teachers modeling for you? So now the question is this. If children see this behavior, will they take it a step further? So, I mean, how many video games are bad? Yeah, I don't know. Should we say no more violence in TV? Go ahead.
Has this been labeled as unethical because, like, we're teaching kids violence?
That's a good way to look at the Bandura experience. We're teaching kids violence. Go ahead.
Does this always happen? Because, like, as you said, there's, like, violence everywhere, like, in TV, but you don't see, like, if that were the case, everyone here would be committing all the
Yeah, good question. I don't think this is 100% predictive. Meaning that if a kid sees 100 minutes of violent cartoons, then they will automatically turn into a criminal. There are clearly mitigating factors. I think personality. I think a whole bunch of biological factors. But now let's just, do mommy and daddy show warmth and caring and empathy to themselves, to the kids? Or what else are the kids taught? So if you have a kid that watches nothing but violence and has nothing to counter that, then yeah, you're going to have a problem. Let's jump on to a different type of learning now. We're going to call it cognitive learning. Cognitive learning is, well, Skinner's going to hate it. Why is Skinner going to hate cognitive learning? Because how do you measure thoughts? How do you measure what goes on in the mind? Cognitive, of course, means thoughts. Another way to call this is insight learning, meaning something happens in your mind and you just get it. How cool would this be if we could kind of establish what happens when understanding happens? At that momentous occasion where you're doing your math, you're doing your chemistry, you're doing your physics, and all of a sudden, bam, it makes sense. If we could bottle that, if we could harness it, if we could study it, I think it might make teaching and learning a lot more efficient and probably less painful. I think right now math is done by brute force. Teacher does some demonstration on the chalkboard. Kids barely pay attention, sort of get it in class. You know what the teacher does? Here, do these 15 problems tonight for homework. You didn't get it? Do more practice. You didn't get it? Do more practice. And it's just like hitting the kid over and over and over again with repetition of something they sort of understand. Is that the best way to teach? I don't think so, but I don't know of a better way. Although, think about it. There is a point in your academic career where all of a sudden it made sense. What happened then? What was the cause? What was the transition? How do we explain that and, more importantly, replicate it in your life and another kid's life? I don't know. And we know that psychology is good at describing, good at labeling, but not good at explaining. This is the science that came up with the cocktail party phenomenon. That's actually a real vocabulary word. You know this. They can't explain it, but they can describe it. So what do we call? We call it the aha moment, where all of a sudden you didn't understand, but now you do. Now Skinner, Pavlov, Thorndike, they're going to say, what is this thing called understanding? You can't measure understanding. You can only measure behavior. Thorndike said there was no such thing as understanding. The cat would be in the puzzle box and would just walk around randomly, try this, meow. It would pee here, would scratch there, would lay down, wag its tail, would do a whole bunch of random behaviors till one of them accidentally opened the puzzle box. Other scientists say, nope, even animals have this thing called understanding. Let's watch one.
At the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig, Germany, psychologist Joseph Cole places a peanut inside a clear tube. How can the chimpanzee get the snack? She's never seen this puzzle before.
For 10 minutes, there is no solution in sight. And all of a sudden, boom, they solve it. They have to understand that they can use the water as a tool. This is interesting because the water itself, it doesn't have any shape.
Using water as a tool seems like something we would do on a good day.
When the chimpanzee put water in the tube to make the little peanut float up, was that an accident? See, we're tempted to what's called anthropomorphize, and that means put human characteristics on an animal or human characteristics on a computer. Like, my computer's mad today. My car is feeling cranky. You know, whatever it is. We're putting emotion somewhere. So, did the chimpanzee think? Well, the evidence looks like it because the chimpanzee didn't lick the bars, didn't, I don't know, go punch the bars, lick the floor, scratch the bar toe, poke its eye. There's nearly an infinite amount of behaviors it could have done before it spit water in the tube, floated the peanut up, and got the peanut. Thorndike's going to say, just luck. Let's look at another instance where an animal demonstrates insight learning. Does the pigeon demonstrate insight? Well, in order for a pigeon to demonstrate insight, we'd have to define it, we'd have to measure it. We don't know what goes on in the pigeon's brain, so as a result, it's difficult scientifically to say, aha, we can offer evidence, we can't offer proof. Was this, luckily for the pigeon, the first in 130,000 random behaviors the pigeon could have done in the Skinner box? It could have pecked here, could have pecked there, could have stamped its foot and pecked, could have flapped, pecked, and stomped in this corner, then that corner, and then it just miraculously happened to choose to flip over little blocks right underneath the prize. I don't know. I'm going to give the pigeon the benefit of the doubt. I think there is insight learning. The question is, how do we study it? How do we define it? How do we get it? And can we replicate it? So here's what I want you to do. I want you guys, I'm going to give you a little puzzle. And you're going to think about it. And you're going to think about it. Please don't shout it out if you know this little brain teaser. I'm going to give you all about 5 minutes of what school says is think time. All right. You guys might think of nap time. No naps. That's bad. You with me on that? Sleepy? Hello? You with me? Okay, good. She's done. All right. So I'm going to show you all a little puzzle. If you know this, don't shout it out. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. But more importantly, I don't want you just to solve it. If you can't solve it, ask yourself why. What is the cause of non-insight? If it does come to you all of a sudden, aha, I got it. What happened? What happened in that 1/10 of a second? Let's try this out. You're in a dark room. You must attach a candle to a wall. You have the following materials: a candle, a box of thumbtacks, and a book of matches. 5 minutes, try to think this through. You can draw it, talk to yourself, but don't just shout it out. Let the dumb kids have a chance too. All right. Go, try it out. Anyone got this? What you got? Melt a candle onto the wall. How many of y'all like that idea? Pretty good. When you came up with your idea, how did it happen? It just clicked. That's not good enough for science. Because if, let's say I'm a teacher, and I actually am a teacher, believe it or not, and the principal comes up to me and says, how come your test scores are so bad? And I say, well, it didn't just click with my students. That's not enough. And they say, well, that's not good enough. I say, well, the technical term is the aha moment. My students didn't have an aha moment. And the school board's going to say, make them have an aha moment or you're fired. And I say, how do I make them have an aha moment? How do I make them understand? You can see the problem with studying this concept. I think we can describe it, we can't explain it. Questions. Latent learning is learning that's hidden. You don't notice it the first time. So say you're in a math class, and you get it. You learned it, you acquired it, but since you don't do your homework, you don't demonstrate it. You only demonstrate it on the test. And so what does that mean? That means that, if you never heard the word latent, it means hidden. How much time we got? Where? Outside where? Well, theoretically, Canada's outside the classroom, son. You're going to have to be a little bit more specific.